We've grown as individuals, we've grown as team members, and we are moving forward. So this is our year-end celebration, the power of faith and community, taking our impact higher. We talked a lot this year about impact, but we want to talk a little bit today about how to see things in a different way, how to look at the challenges in front of you and look at it from God's perspective. When we look at things from God's perspective, they look different. And we are capable of seeing how we can take that impact higher. We have the best possible guest to bring this topic to you. First, we have Pastor Paul Baines. We have Jonathan Butler, Dr. Jonathan Butler, Devone Bogan, and Dr. Michelle Miles Chambers. And so I'd like to, Shai, let's just get started. We're excited, and this is a celebration. As you know, before we start, we need to know who's here. And that's why we do this whole thing about changing your name, because we want to know if you attended, we want to be able to give you additional information, and we want to know that you joined us. So before you start, we're just asking if you want to change your name. To do that, excuse me, by hovering over your video, clicking the 3 dots in the corner. We tell you this every time, click rename. But this part is really important. Change your full name and put in the name of your organization so we'll know which organization you are with. You're going to have access to the recording of this training, this celebration. And so we just want to make sure that you expect it, you know it's happening. And if you didn't pre-register, please private message Shai Alderman, and Shai will make sure that you are sent any materials that follow. Some of you have probably received materials already, and from Advanced Peace. You can request those as well. If you registered within the last few days, you may not have gotten that. So let me tell you just a little bit about our team. I'm so excited about having Dr. David Franklin here. He's going to speak to you in just a second. Dr. Michelle Miles Chambers is going to be one of our moderators. I will be the other. What's amazing about Dr. Chambers is Dr. Chambers, we talk several times a week, even if it's just for like 2 minutes. And I was still calling her the senior program director for faiths, but she is the director of faiths. So that's what happens when your sister gets promoted and she doesn't even tell you. And so celebration of that too. Dr. Chambers, we are excited for you. It is long overdue, but we won't even talk about that issue. And then we have Saran Stokes, who is amazing. Shai Alderman, who holds things together with a model built on faith, as well as Simone Stokes, who does the same. So this is the team. And then we have a member of the team whose face is not here, but she is ever present. And she knows who she is, Sandra Alexander. And so that's the dynamic team. And we're just very excited to celebrate them as well today. So before we get started introducing our panelists, I want to just pause for a moment to hear from the president and CEO of OCUR, Dr. David Franklin. Dr. Franklin.
Thank you, Carmen. It's really good to be with all of you this morning. It's the final session. We made it. We made it to the final session of A Model Built on Faith 2023. And I'm really inspired by the hard work and dedication that so many of you have put into this, being part of this program, to participating, leveraging the ideas, utilizing the ideas to expand the impact of your organization. This year, we were really focused on ensuring that we were providing the kind of content that would allow you to level up both in your strategy and in your delivery of programming. And I have just been amazed to see some of those results realized throughout the course of this year. So a big kudos to you, and continue to inspire others with the impact that you're making. Of course, we need to give a big thanks to San Francisco Face program under the leadership of the director, Dr. Michelle Miles Chambers. She has just been a champion for the faith-based community for so long. And it definitely is exhibited through this program. So we're grateful to her. Of course, our program director, Carmen Bogan, who is a fearless leader in so many rights. And so we're grateful to have her. And then, of course, all of the additional staff, some of them have already been mentioned, that helped to make this possible. We're grateful. You know, I just want to say one more word about faith-based leaders. I just believe, and I not only the president and CEO of Occur, but I'm also a pastor. And for the way that I look at life and the way that I look at everything that's going on in our society, faith-based leaders play a critical and vital role in ensuring that we're able to build stronger communities. And so my hope and really my prayer is that today, as we close out this year's program, that you will be not only inspired but provoked to continue to move forward, to expand and deepen the impact that you're having in your communities, because I believe it's up to the faith-based community to ensure that we not only build stronger communities, but we support those in need. And in a larger sense, we make the world a better place. So I'm excited that you've been part of our program. May you get a few more skills, a few more ideas today. And then in 2024, we're going to be pushing forward in a whole new way that I believe is going to be equally, if not more valuable than this year has been. So look out for all of that information. And again, we're just grateful to have you with us today. I'll hand it back over to you, Carmen.
Thank you, Dr. Franklin. And now what you've all been waiting for, we want to just tell you who the panelists are, because each of these panelists, we want you to focus on who they are and really understand the gravity of our having these three individuals, all three of these individuals, in addition to Dr. Michelle Miles Chambers with us today. God has moved some mountains to get them in the same place at the same time. And so it is truly a celebration, but beyond that, it is going to be electric, because what I'm expecting is that we're going to hear things in a different way today. So the three presenters that we will be talking to and hearing from today is Pastor Paul Baines, who is the pastor of St. Samuel Kojic, for those of you who don't know, Church of God in Christ, and the founder of United Hope Builders. Dr. Jonathan Butler, Associate Minister of Third Baptist Church and Executive Director of San Francisco African American Faith-Based Coalition, and Devone Bogan with 2Gs, and he is the founder of Advanced Peace. So that we take care of this issue right off the bat, Devone. Devone is my nephew, and there is a reason that his last name is spelled with 2Gs. That happened in the Bogan family between the Irish, whose name was O'Bogan, O''Boggan, and the Michiganders and Alabamians, who spelled it Bogan. So that's why. But anyway, so I'm going to toss it over to Dr. Michelle Miles Chambers to get us started with our very first presenter, Pastor Paul Baines, St. Samuel Kojic Church.
Well, good morning, everyone. Grand Rising. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Dr. Franklin, for this wonderful opportunity to partner and collaborate. But let me just say, Carmen had said that we have wonderful guests. No, we have wonderful family members. This is a family reunion, y'all, okay? These three young men, well, yeah, they still young. We've been knowing each other for 20 plus years, some of us 30 plus years. And so I'm really excited to share this morning space with them. And I'm going to start with my big brother. That's what I call him, Pastor Paul Baines, who is such a gem in his own right. He has a long bio, you guys. I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to share some of it with you guys. As the wealth and opportunity gaps in the Bay Area economy widen and deepen, We Hope co-founder and president Paul Baines is continuing his lifelong commitment by helping the most marginalized individuals and families achieve stability and build a more promising future. Located in East Palo Alto in San Mateo County, the mission of We Hope is to help people become healthy, employed, and housed using innovative solutions. Pastor Baines is recognized as a tireless, transformative leader whose vision, actions, and collaborative efforts improve the lives of people throughout the Bay Area. Annually, We Hope serves 5,000 people, of whom more than 60% are of color, 30% are formerly incarcerated, 10% are LGBTQ, and more than 90% are living in poverty. The geographic regions served include San Mateo, Santa Clara, San Francisco, and Alameda counties. Pastor Baines has strong relationships in the residential, educational, nonprofit, for-profit, government, law enforcement, grant-making, and faith-based sectors. He created the first homeless shelter in East Palo Alto, spearheaded a sales tax initiative in East Palo Alto, and founded and directs a police chaplaincy network. He helped transition East Palo Alto from a murder capital to one in which children and families live more safely and have a better future. One notable activity to break down barriers was created Midnight Basketball, in which the teams consisted of a blend of individuals from various gangs. That is incredible. The work of Pastor Baines, his wife, and co-founder Cheryl Baines, and the staff of We Hope are widely recognized. He's a fellow of the American Leadership Forum, and in 2016, We Hope received one of the first California State Senate Nonprofit of the Year awards. In April of 2020, Pastor Baines and We Hope was recognized by the Palo Alto Chamber of Commerce with the Tall
Michelle, that's good.
Award.
That's
Okay, well, I was getting ready to stop anyway. So let's hear it from Pastor Baines. He's going to share more of his story and his stats. And you guys have to go out to EPA to see the program. You have to go and have worship service with him. He is an awesome brother doing the work of the Lord and helping everybody in the community. And he don't do it by himself. His wife is right there with him. Welcome, my big brother.
Amen. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity, Dr. Franklin and Sister Carmen, and of course my sister. And it's a pleasure to be on this great panel of esteemed experts, domain experts. That's the first time I've heard that bio. It's way too long, and we will shorten that up. So my staff sent that over there. Nevertheless, I'm here to answer questions. I just feel welcome. I bring you greetings from Los Angeles, where I'm actually speaking up here to bishops from around the world. So keep us in your prayers.
All right. So Pastor Baines, are you going to share your videos, or shall we just dig into the questions now?
I thought, okay. I thought someone was sharing that.
We have your video. We'll start it right now.
Okay, great. And then we'll dig into the question.
Yeah. All right. So I'm honored to be a guest here on with the Kerr, a model built on faith. You can go to the next slide. So many of you already know that we have over 100 million people worldwide that's dealing with homelessness. And that's a field where my wife and I, Cheryl Baines, when we founded We Hope over since 1999, and then recently we founded United Hope Builders, was to address particularly people who are unhoused and also the homeless. And California happens to be the largest state with the largest amount with homelessness in it. Next slide, please. Who we are, yes, that's one of our team members right there. That's Miguel, who was formerly homeless, formerly incarcerated, and he has joined our team. And he's demonstrating and living out one of our principles, which is to be other-centered. In this world, we know that people are self-centered so much and what's in it for them, but it's being able to show that love of God that we have to others, and we do that through action. Next slide. That's my beautiful wife, also AKA my queen. I'm a married man of one queen and 3 beautiful princesses, and now a beautiful granddaughter. And I have a grandson. And so we started this journey back in 1999, and that's just a picture of 2 homes, which I'll talk about at the latter part of this presentation. Next slide, please. As Michelle mentioned earlier, our mission is to help people become healthy, employed, and housed using innovative solutions. And we're grateful for the support of organizations like the San Francisco Foundation that has actually helped us implement these types of solutions, which we'll hear about. Next slide, please. Meeting people where they are, that's critically important. If we don't meet people where we are instead of where we want them to be, it can be most challenging for the individual and lead to an area of frustration that we, because we're trying to find something that they're not. Next slide, please. When Miguel said this, you know, these are just words from our individuals that we have helped who are now actually employees. You know, staying clean is hard, is the hardest part. And the reason why this is so important, because access to clean water is actually a right that everyone should have. Next slide. We're the richest country in the world, and yet you have, you know, 2 million Americans that don't have access to clean water. Well, most of those people are our unhoused brothers and sisters that are living in homeless encampments and areas just where the homeless gather. And so therefore, that's why one of the reasons why we created what we created. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We created one of our programs out of the 11 that we have. It's called Dignity on Wheels. We created that in 2015 because there was nothing out there that fit what we wanted to do. We created this mobile hygiene unit that provides showers, it provides restrooms, it provides laundry services, and we also provide case management. It's very important. If I ask everyone on this call, did you have your shower today? Well, most of you would say yes. If I ask you if you had a shower this week, hopefully all of you would say yes. But believe it or not, that's a huge barrier from our unhoused brothers and sisters. They don't have access to that clean water. And so we bring the water to them. What does that do for them? Well, now they're really and ready to go and look for that job. They're willing to get on public transportation, because before they would be ostracized because they're in an unclean state. Their clothes are dirty and people don't want to be around them, and they don't want to be around people because they don't want to be made fun of and looked down upon even more. And so by providing just a simple shower and clean clothes, it puts them in a different state of mind to where they are now willing to go to that mental health appointment or go and come around friends and family. Next slide, please. So through creating Dignity on Wheels, we also created these other programs, Hope Health Mobile, which is a medical assessment that occurs in one of our RV vans. That's in partnership with doctors, where they give that all over the internet. So it's an online presentation remotely done. And our Hope Health Mobile can go throughout any county and provide these services. Then we created the first RV safe parking program in the country, we've been told. It was created because we were solving a problem starting off in East Palo Alto, where we had RVs just living all over the place, and then some of them disposing of their waste on the street, which is a health hazard. So the city asked if we can do anything to address this issue, and we assessed the situation, surveyed the clients, and then we created this program, one which we share with the faith community. We're all about, when I say we hope helps other people excel. It's all about expressing what we do and sharing it with people literally all around the world. The case management, it's critical that we have case managers involved in the process, because then they have an advocate that's working with them. We as individuals that are already housed and have some means, we already have a challenging enough time working with the government or working with the process. Well, just imagine someone who has not been connected into the system at all, have not been connected to the internet and things of that nature. They need case management to help them, to be there to encourage them that they can make it. And so that's a critical, important piece in any program that we have. Next slide, please. You can just skip past all of this. Go next, skip past. This is keep on this one. This is Marcus. He is now our program coordinator. If you can click on that video, and that should be enough of my slides.
Dignity on Wheels was founded in 2015. We started off with just one truck and trailer. Now here it is in 2022. We have 9 trucks and trailers servicing the whole Bay Area. We're in operation 7 days a week, from sun up to sundown, servicing our community. So I'm gonna give you a little insight, show you around our trailers, see what we do, make you a part of what we do out here. So this is our shower. This is one of our shower units. It has a shower stall, it has hot water, cold water, it has an operated timer, it has soap dispenser, it also has a chair for you. So our shower program, it's a 15-minute shower. The water runs for 7, and of course, if you need more time, all you do is let us know, we'll keep the water running for you. So this is our laundry room, which has 2 washing machines and 2 dryers. So what we do is we have the guests line up, put their clothes into a basket, and we put their laundry into the washing machine. The washers take about 27 minutes to wash, and the dryers takes about 30 to maybe 40 minutes to dry. So you're pretty much out in an hour. What makes Dignity on Wheels special, is personal to me, is that I came home from prison, didn't have anywhere to go, didn't have a job. Dignity on Wheels employed me, and today I'm healthy, housed, and employed. And I'm just happy to be a part of magnificent change. Being a native from here, it's an honor to serve my community and not take from it anymore.
Oh, thank you. That. And what's special about Marcus is he spent, I don't know if it was 16 or 19 years in prison. And as you've heard him, he said he's proud that he's no longer taking from his community, causing havoc and things of that nature. And now he's employed. He has actually worked his way up, and he is now a program coordinator under the director of our mobile homeless services program, Anita Blount. And so he now trains our drivers, and 67% of the 120 employees that we have are formerly incarcerated, are formerly unhoused. And so we're grateful to be able to provide opportunities for our staff. All right.
All right, let's give Pastor Baines a hand. Wow, that is amazing work. So I want to first say kudos to you and Sister Cheryl, my sister Cheryl, and St. Samuel's for the work that you guys are doing. And folks, if you all know any unhoused individuals, please send them to Dignity on Wheels. They are in multiple counties, or if they need to go to EPA to join, we hope, send them there, give them a ride there. So Pastor Baines, now, how do you keep your clients engaged long enough to move from homelessness to housing and employment? And then on top of that, what's unique about We Hope and the program and the services that you guys provide that's different from other homeless shelters?
Well, when I mentioned about the case management, thank you for the question. It's critically important that you develop a relationship with people. As you know, change moves at the speed of trust, right?
Yes.
If you don't establish trust, then it's going to be harder for you to work with anyone, whether they're unhoused, whether it's business relationship, whether it's even people in the church, believe it or not. And so the case managers play that critical role of being that glue from our services to our client. They help get them motivated, they understand, they assess their situation, and they help them develop a plan. It's teaching them how to fish, though. It's not just giving them the fish. And I like to say, eventually owning the pond. That's where we need to be as the faith community, particularly people of color. And your second question was what?
What makes We Hope unique from other homeless programs?
Well, I would say that one, we have a unique understanding of our community. You know, when you're servicing and the majority of the people are people of color, well, everybody knows by my tan, I'm a person of color. And so we know what we've gone through, right? We know what we go through, and we know what we're going to face when it comes to implementing programs, when it comes to getting loans, when it comes to trying to help our community. We know who we can count on. I think because we built it up, we built up these trusted relationships, that has created a synergistic approach to a myriad of programs that we have implemented. It's not just about Cheryl and I, it's not just about our staff, but it's about how we work well with others. How would we play well in the sandbox with other faiths, with other CBOs? That's, I think, people feel, or at least we've heard, that we've been a trusted source in working with other relationships, other CEOs, things of that nature, even the law enforcement.
That is great. You building trust, which means that, you know, unhoused community members are able to trust We Hope, knowing that they're not going to stay in their current situation, but there's hope that they're going to eventually get a job, move into permanent housing or transitional housing. That's wonderful work. So my next question then is, you know, were you already connected to the community's needs? Like, how did you wrap your arms around saying, I'm going to provide this unique service to our homeless community members, and then on top of that, the services that you provide, and then all the linkages that you have? How did that come about? How did you develop that? All these elements, like people have a hard time just dealing with one program. You have 11 components.
I would say it started with my wife and I when we first got married. Even before we got married, we went to marriage education. We saw what we wanted to do individually, and then we saw how we wanted to work together as a dream coming true for our community. And Cheryl and I traveled the country, and we looked at various things that were happening out there. And one of the things that we came across was through Carlton Pearson. Now, this is years.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
26 years ago. And we went to one of his seminars, and they had this group out of DC, and I was impressed by, they had a single program, and I was impressed by another program, someone else. We brought it all back, put it in our spiritual mixing bowl, and then we assessed our community to find out what were the unmet needs. Because I do have a business background in trucking and janitorial services, you know, there's a business acumen, and I'm looking at, okay, not the problem, but what is the solution to the problem?
Gotcha.
We like to be more solution driven than problem consumed. And if I listened to other people, they would have said, and we were told, oh, you'll never get a shelter open in East Palo Alto. Well, now we have 2 shelters, 100 beds in San Francisco, 113 beds in East Palo Alto. You'll never do dignity on wheels. And this is, a lot of people said, you're just enabling them. Well, now we're the largest, most comprehensive mobile hygiene service provider in the country. We actually have 17 trailers and 11 trucks right now. So those are the things that we looked at. We assessed our community, looked at the unmet needs, because we didn't need to do what Michelle was doing or what Jonathan was doing. If they're already doing it, we just need to celebrate them and get behind them. But what is God leading us to do? What systemic issue does he want us to address? And that there was no homeless shelter there. There was no police chaplaincy there to help bridge the gap between law enforcement and people of color. So that's how we
wow. So it was a self-assessment internally on what your role and your walk is and what your purpose is, and then to concentrate on the solution. That's awesome. So I have 2 last parting questions for you. So we know about We Hope, but tell us how We Hope, you guys are leveling up, how We Hope started this idea of hope builders.
So, you know, Michelle, you know me better than anybody on this call. And when we looked at our program, we started off as volunteers for We Hope. And we started off just staying in what we call the Lord's Gym, because that's where we were doing midnight basketball, midnight soccer to help prevent gang violence. Well, when I walked around the corner, I saw a blanket and a bike locker, and the scripture came to me, I was hungry, you didn't feed me. I was shelterless, you didn't invite me in. And so all the programs that we started through We Hope lead to becoming housed. However, sitting on other boards of housing developers, they do good work, they're nonprofit housing, but they weren't doing the best work, because I could still see opportunities for improvement. So my wife and I, at the encouragement of Priscilla Chan of the Chan Zuckerberg, she said, Pastor Baines, I know you're looking at housing manufacturers. Would you consider the one we're considering investing in? So we did. We flew to Idaho. We looked at 8 different manufacturers around the country. And we landed with IndieDwell, who's our partner. And we are actually looking at opening up. We were going to go to East Palo Alto, but it became cost prohibitive. But we're going to open up a factory, building one in Hollister. It will be a 100,000 square foot factory, and it'll be employing 100 employees and building over 200 to 400 units of affordable quality housing. But the key is, not only are we building quality affordable housing, which were those 2 homes that you saw the very first slide about Meet Our Founders. Those were model homes that we created last year. We also are going to do workforce development by employing over 100 people. And then we're doing wealth creation, because each of those employees will have a 20% equity stake in the company. So they'll be 20% owner in the factory themselves. So as it becomes profitable, they'll be able to not only have a gainful employment, but they also will be sharing in the benefits on there, because we're trying to raise the bar and help our people not just survive, but to thrive in this, you know, Bay Area that we live in. So yeah, that's why we're created United Hope Builders, to build steel, modular, affordable quality housing.
That is awesome. You went from the vision that God gave you to the implementation, creating one of the most unique homeless shelters in the country, providing multiple services and resources to move people from homelessness to home and equity as well as employment. And now you are actually going to be purposeful on building affordable quality homes for folks to either rent or own. That is fantastic. Thank you. My last question, and I know we're over time, but this is my last question. And folks that are participatory, get your questions together because we are going to have a Q&A later on after the last speaker. So for other nonprofits dealing with the homeless issue, what would be like your, let's say your 2 chicken nuggets or your 2 snacks that you would give them to take their work to the next level?
Well, it would depend upon the definition of level of where they're currently are. I sit on the board of Life Moves, and it's ran by African American too, as I encourage them to hire African Americans now. They're in the space of serving the homelessness through their shelters. They happen to be the largest one in Silicon Valley. So it depends on where the organization is. The first thing is you must have a vision, though, regardless of your size. You have to have a clear vision, a clear purpose of what you are going to execute upon. And just because you run into some roadblocks doesn't mean you should give up on that vision. And then I would say participate with others, learn from others. I've always been a sponge, and I've always been a person that would share our best practices with anybody, as long as they're serious about it, because we don't want to have the same conversation twice. At one time we could talk, but if you keep bringing it up the same thing, that means you're not paying attention. So I would say develop trusted relationships that going to help you leverage what your existing resources are to even greater resources, and most importantly, the impact that you're trying to make in your community.
Thank you, Big Brother. Thank you, Pastor Baines, United Hope Builders, and we hope you all, let's give him a big round of applause. We are going to move to our brother, Jonathan Butler, and I met this brother when he stepped foot into the Bay Area. That was a long time ago, and he is continuing to do great things. Let me just pull up his bio and read Brother Butler's bio real quick for you guys, and then we're going to dig into the conversation with Mr. Butler. Dr. Butler is a highly sought after community researcher, faith leader, public speaker, preacher, and community activist who lives in the heart of San Francisco, California. Dr. Butler is the Associate Director of the Black Health Initiative at the University of California, San Francisco, what we always call as UCSF, and professor in the Department of Family and Community Medicine at San Francisco State University. He is also a consultant of UCSF's Clinical and Translational Science Institute. Dr. Butler serves as a co-investor and project director of several nationally funded grants. He is the co-investigator and project director of the Obesity and Jobs in Sociology. I can't say that, Jonathan. I'm sorry. Disadvantaged communities, because it's got these little acronyms, y'all. A randomized clinical precision public health intervention is called the SCULP, SCULP. I'll drop it in the chat. It's a job study, an interventional research study about clinical, psychosocial, and behavioral factors that impact weight loss, weight maintenance, and cardiovascular disease in socially disadvantaged persons. Dr. Butler is also the executive director for 2 nonprofits, San Francisco African American Faith-Based Coalition and the San Francisco Students Back on Track Tutoring Program. In 2016, the San Francisco African American Faith-Based Coalition, a coalition of 21 churches in San Francisco, formed to address hunger among vulnerable populations in the San Francisco Bay Area. Since March of 2020, during the pandemic, The organization has distributed more than 600,000 prepared meals and more than 70,000 produce boxes to 1,600 households, which is 2,300 individuals in San Francisco. The coalition has hosted testing and vaccination clinics in the churches, testing approximately 5,000 individuals and vaccinating over 1,200 individuals. Back on Track was founded in 1988 as an interfaith collaborative effort between Third Baptist Church and Temple Emmanuel Synagogue. The unique partnership has crossed religious and cultural differences to build bridges for opportunities for K through 12 students. Back on Track has served more than 2,000 young people from diverse multicultural populations throughout San Francisco. Vice President Kamala Harris.
That's
it. Okay. See, y'all. Okay. So we ready to go. Okay. So let's welcome, you guys, give a big round of applause for Dr. Jonathan Butler. Yeah, and I didn't even mention he is a husband and a father on top of all that he does. So I'm not for sure if he sleeps, because every time I call him, he's on the move. He's on the move. So welcome, Dr. Butler. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm certainly grateful to be a part of this this group and this conversation that we're having. And thanks to Ms. Bogan and others in the Occur Project for inviting me to be a part of this.
All right. I think you have a slide deck.
I do. If they can be shared, that would be great.
Perfect.
Well, on the onset, I want to honor one of our recent presidents of our boards for the San Francisco African American Faith-Based Coalition, Reverend Raynard Hillis, who passed away last week. I just wanted to bring his name to the space to honor him and the work that he's done. He's actually one of the first pastors who agreed to be a part of the San Francisco African American Faith-Based Coalition. Next slide, please. You know, our mission is to elevate the quality of life of Black San Franciscans. And we look at our mission as making sure that people are whole, healthy, and productive citizens by empowering community through this faith-based network called the African American Faith-Based Coalition. You know, we look at the total person, we look at the total household, and we look at each individual through a life course perspective, from the pregnant woman all the way to our older adult. We try to make sure that we are servicing their needs. And so we have a vision of creating a society of equity and justice where the most vulnerable populations can have ready access to resources. And we have a list of values, as you can see here. But what makes us unique is that we are a network of churches addressing health issues in the community. And although that we may have different theologies, we may have different approaches in the way which we worship, we do come together to address the needs of the community, particularly the need of hunger. We have also a commitment from many of our city agencies who have continuously supported our work. And as I mentioned earlier, we use a holistic approach to our services that we provide at no minimal cost to the community members. Next slide, please. Next slide. I'll go to the next slide. Now, we have distributed a survey to those whom we serve. And as you can see, many of them worry about food running out before they have enough money to buy more, can't afford to eat a balanced meal, and they cut the size of their meals to skip meals. There's a story of a pastor who preached, on Sunday, every Sunday, and did not realize that his congregation was hungry. And so after understanding the survey, he felt a need to be a part of the coalition and contribute to our efforts in reducing hunger in our communities. Next slide. Most of our communities that we serve are diabetic, have challenges with heart disease and high blood pressure, asthma, and kidney failure, which is, as a researcher, this is certainly something that is important for me to reduce. And there are ways in which we can do that. And that's where the coalition comes into play. Many of our community members that we serve are seniors, 65 years age is the average age. And we not only serve African Americans, but we also serve our Latinx brothers and sisters and also our Asian brothers and sisters, and we are also committed to serving specifically our Samoan community. Next slide. And so I just wanted to just highlight, the reason why we're doing what we're doing is because as we are asking our communities what their greatest needs are, food is at the top of it. And so even prior to the pandemic, food was a major issue. Hunger was a big deal in our community. And obviously during the pandemic, there was a crisis, but even now there's still a demand for food. And so we not only have committed ourselves to food, but we consider it as a key to open up the doors to other issues that our community faces. Next slide, please. One of our values is collaboration. And I think that even Pastor Gaines, as he mentioned, we in all that we do, we work with either community partners or city government agencies, but everything that we do together. Next slide. And these are just a few of our partners as we started. Next slide. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Thanks. And as been mentioned, what we're certainly proud of is that we have since March 2022, March 2020, but certainly before then, we have been consistently distributing quality prepared meals to those whom we serve. And we are now at 700,000. We haven't stopped distributing meals, and we also have provided up to 70,000 produce boxes. And we're partnering with the San Francisco Marin Food Bank every Saturday to distribute those boxes. Next slide. Next slide, please. We also, as I mentioned, food is the key to unlock the gate. And I believe Pastor just mentioned how, certainly we're solution driven and not problem consumed. I like that. But we also realized that we were able to provide services during the pandemic by hosting vaccination clinics in partnership with UCSL's Black Health Initiative. And as mentioned while reading my bio, that we have tested at least 5,000, vaccinated 1,200. And even though the vaccinations haven't certainly been top of mind for many people, the coalition has never stopped providing vaccination services to our communities. And we continue to do so, especially as I'll put a plug in right now, that everyone needs to get vaccinated now. And the new booster has been approved by the FDA. I think it's now a good time for everybody to get vaccinated, especially as we go into this flu season. So the COVID vaccine and also the flu vaccine, and look for a church to host in the next month or so. Next slide. So one of the approaches that we use, as mentioned, obviously we do outreach in our vaccination clinics, but we focus on those whom we fed, and then we offer them additional service such as vaccinations. We certainly vaccinate the community, but we also stay connected, which is one of the most important things that we could ever do. And so that when time comes for another vaccination, we already have a pool of participants who have been vaccinated multiple times through the churches, and we continue to stay connected, not only providing them with vaccinations, but also flu vaccinations, providing them with additional food and all the other services that we offer. Next slide, please. And these are just some of the images of our vaccination clinics. And I just want to also shout out Ms. Linda Sanders, who I know is on the call. She's a member of our coalition and faithful member from Calvary Hill Baptist Church. And just wanted to know that every time that I'm speaking, there's always a coalition member present. It just shows the commitment of our liaisons and our pastors who are committed to just health disparities in general. Next slide. These are a few more pictures, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Butler. So we have Pastor Baines providing the employment, you all SFAABC, I think I got it right, providing, the food security for our community members in San Francisco, as well as really partnering with faith-based organizations and congregations to provide the public health messaging. So my first question for you is, what can public health do to partner with the faith-based and community-based organizations to be proactive, to provide services, and to educate before the crisis? We know that the people of color, particularly the Black community, the Latinx community, and the AAPI community, the darker hues of the AAPI community really got hit hard by the pandemic because all the data was there before. We're moving into the same season. The numbers are up, but nobody's talking about it. It's not on the news. What can the public health department do, and San Francisco African American Coalition?
Well, this is a question that was raised during the first of the pandemic, and my response was, get out the way, let us do the work.
Okay.
So one of the joys of the coalition and many other CBOs is that, as Pastor Gaines mentioned, is about trust. Change moves at the speed of trust. And so, as we all know, the African-American faith-based institution is, no matter what, is the pillar of the Black community. No matter if folks are attending church or not, when a crisis comes, many folks flock to the church. And that's what we found to be very true with our coalition. As a matter of fact, many of the people that we serve are not a part of our churches, but they are in the community. And so one of the things that we have instructed the public health department to do is give us the resources and allow us to do the work, because we've established the trust already, and they've already come to us. And so that's how we were so successful. We, as a coalition, was the first organization to start feeding, because we had already established our network of churches, and we had been feeding prior to the pandemic. And so when the pandemic hit, we had a very generous donor to give to our coalition, and we started feeding every single day, quality meals to our congregants. Whereas, as the founder, Veronica Shepherd, and I put our heads together and crunched the numbers to making sure that, we fed as many people as possible, as quick as possible. And that's why we've been successful, because there are those like DPH and other city organizations that allowed us to lead. And I think that's certainly the case for other CBOs. And that's certainly something that I think is the best practice when moving forward to the next crisis, is just allow those that have already established the relationships, have been connected with the community, to actually lead.
That brings me to another question. That is great, because you are right. It's the thing today is trust. And so we already know that community members have trust in houses of worship and faith-based organizations, mosques, temples, synagogues. So how can those establishments, even the CBOs, be able to partner with public health institutions or public health departments to receive the necessary funding? And then how can we get the messaging out earlier? Like right now, we need posters at our congregations, at our mosque, at our temples, at our spiritual retreats and everything. We need those messagings now. We need the text messaging, the social media. Like, we need all that right now.
Right. Well, we started off in the pandemic, and we actually are kicking this off in a few weeks, is providing our community with the access to infectious disease docs to answer some of their questions. And so one of the ways in which we have been successful is through my access through UCSF, getting a Black infectious disease doctors to talk to the community about what needs to happen. So that's the first step, is really trusted messengers. And as we, in my work at UCSF, we've done some qualitative work in trying to see what was the best approach in helping others understand the importance of getting vaccinated, getting tested, et cetera. And one was, yes, the spiritual leader, but also the doctor. And so pairing those two together is what I think is important. And as you mentioned, begin now. So I've been in conversations with the Department of Public Health about making sure that we educate still, especially our seniors, the need to get their, whatever it is, I think it's the 5th booster, right? And
Yeah.
we begin now having those conversations. So I think one of the emphasis that I put on our pastors is in their, whether it be in their sermons or their announcements at church on Sunday, whether it be in the bulletin, just to have a blurb about the importance of actually getting the vaccines. And a lot of the churches have even gone back to wearing masks as a consequence of being protective. And so one of the other messages that I want to put a plug out for those is that if you're not ready to get the booster, at least wear your mask, at least wash your hands, at least stay distance. I mean, we still have to have some of those same practices that we've had at the beginning of the pandemic now. And I think we need more faith leaders. We need more doctors, physicians to go ahead wherever they are in their networks to begin to preach this, the importance of taking safe practices even now.
Thank you, Dr. Butler. I'm going to end with this one last question. Number one, I wish you would send that message to Alameda County so that all counties can partner. So I'm going to leave that with you. Are there any other, pressing issues that we need to know about to educate our community members about so that we can be proactive with what's happening and paying attention before it becomes a crisis?
Absolutely. There's several things. One is that we all know that what I like to call mental wellness is a major issue in our community. And when I think about mental wellness, I'm looking at a spectrum. All of us need mental health services, no matter where you are along that spectrum. And so just to reduce the stigma, we need to be preaching how important it is for us all to take care of ourselves. And that's one of the things that we struggle with because of the trauma that we experience as of Black folks in our community. The other thing that I want to highlight and raise is the importance of looking at it from a life course perspective, that our health is predicted, determined at a very young age. And so if we do not prioritize our women who are pregnant with our children, we will miss the mark. And so health starts with the pregnant woman. And there's research to prove that if one doesn't have what they need in terms of their education and income, in terms of their health at a young age, there's certainly a direct relationship between that and a increase in mortality, early mortality. And so one of the emphasis that I want to place on everyone is that many of us have our separate, issues that we tackle as organizations. And that issue is not the only issue that people are dealing with. They're dealing with their whole self. And so that body, mind, and spirit is certainly important. They're dealing with their entire family. The grandmother now lives with the grandchild, and they are dealing with issues that have been placed on them since birth. And so making sure that we address our young kids, our babies, is absolutely essential for us to obtain wealth, not only financially, but from a health perspective. So I wanted to emphasize the importance of that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Butler. You all help me give Dr. Butler a hand. We have something in the chat from St. Benedict's. Chiquita dropped something in the chat. This is us thriving in our faith, Sunday, October 1st. Thank you, Dr. Butler, for presenting. Remember, you guys, get your questions ready for the end when you can ask the full panelists. So we have talked about trust. So our theme today is trust, self-care, mental wellness, self-education, and education through the public health. And everyone, go out this weekend to get your flu shot and your vaccine. I'm going to get mine after this session. Thank you so much. Carmen, it's back in your hands.
Well, thank you. That was fascinating. I'm still chewing on everything that I've heard in these interviews, and I really cannot wait to get to the point where our participants are asking questions. I know that they have a lot of questions. So without further ado, let's bring up our next speaker, who is Devone Bogan. And I'm excited because Devone Bogan has really been on a journey that has scared me, quite frankly, from many years ago when he was working with Martin Jacks and doing mentoring, and that mentoring mindset has gone just really over the top. I want to tell you a little bit about Devone Bogan. And so, Shai, please bring Devone up so that we can see him. There he is. There you are.
Hi, Aunt Carmen.
Call me Aunt Carmen. You can't
No,
call me
call
Aunt
her
Carmen.
Aunt Carmen. Call her Aunt Carmen. She be talking about, that's my nephew. Now she want to take her, she want to determine her title. No.
I know. Well, you know, it's funny because a lot of you don't know that there's a whole generation of 40 and 50 somethings that call me Mama Bogan. So you could call me Aunt Carmen if you want to. I am proud and honored. Let me just tell everybody about you. So anyway, I'm going to read your bio, and there's a whole lot more in here. So I'm glad it's written down because I know a whole lot more in here that one could say about your journey. So let me just read this. Devone Bogan is CEO and founder of Advance Peace. Advance Peace interrupts gun violence in American urban neighborhoods by providing transformational opportunities to young men involved in lethal firearm offenses and placing them in a high-touched, personalized fellowship. And we could even edit that right now to say young women, because what we're seeing in Oakland is young women also who have become involved in gun violence. By working with and supporting a targeted group of individuals at the core of gun hostilities, Advance Peace bridges the gap between anti-violence programming and a hard-to-reach population at the center of violence in urban areas. And we know this all too well in Oakland in particular. And so we're breaking the silence of gun hostilities through Advance Peace and altering the trajectory of these young men's lives. Devone is a former neighborhood safety director and founding director of the Office of Neighborhood Safety for the city of Richmond, California. You probably are aware of that. The ONS is a government non-law enforcement agency that is charged with reducing firearm assaults and associated deaths in Richmond. Under his leadership as neighborhood safety director, the city experienced a 71% reduction in gun violence between 2007, when the office was created, and 2016. His work with ONS and Advance Peace has been recognized in national publications and media, including the New York Times, Mother Jones, The Nation, The Washington Post, Time Magazine, Fortune, The Economist, Harper's, The New Yorker, PBS NewsHour, The History Channel, well, NPR, Fox News, NBC Nightly News, ABC Nightline, CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, and 60 Minutes. Hello, somebody. Devone is a visiting scholar at the University of California, Berkeley, but we will forgive him for going over there, said the Cardinal. He has published in several academic journals and periodicals and is the recipient of several honors, including the prestigious Ashoka, I hope I'm saying that correctly, Fellowship, the James Irvine Foundation Leadership Award, a Nation Swell All-Star, and Draper Richards Kaplan Foundation supported social entrepreneur. Prior to his tenure in Richmond, Devone served as policy director for Safe Passages, a nonprofit public-private partnership focused on improving urban health outcomes for children, youth, and families. Welcome. Welcome.
Hey, Aunt Carmen, it's good to see everybody or hear everybody.
It's a shame I have to invite you to this thing to see you.
Well, you don't go outside.
I have a mascot. I'm an old person with a mascot. I was out there, you just didn't recognize me.
Your family is the only family in the country, I believe, that probably hasn't gone outside since the pandemic ended.
I'm going out to David, I'm going out to get my shot, okay?
Good,
So
good.
let's talk about you, but let's talk about you.
Well,
So I think it would be, as we talked about earlier, it would be helpful for folks, and thank you for sending out that sheet. I hope everyone got their informational sheet about advanced peace. It's a whole different way of looking at this issue.
yeah.
And this journey started some time ago. Before you tell us about your journey, and I really want you to start in Richmond, I think that we should go through your video to give everyone a perspective of what we're talking about with advanced peace. So Shai, can you please bring up Mr. Bogan's video?
I was an ex-knucklehead. I was a drug dealer. I've been in jail for murder. My neighborhood at the time was known for gunplay, so the people that I hung around with were the reason Richmond's murder rate was higher. I don't want my legacy to say, okay, I was a cat in Richmond that had vets and Range Rovers and things like that. I want them to say, man, you know, he tried to save as many young people as he could.
In 2005, the city of Richmond had more than 300 non-fatal shootings and nearly 50 firearm-related homicides. It was considered the third most dangerous city in the country. I helped found the first Office of Violence Prevention, known as the Office of Neighborhood Safety, here in 2007. Now there are more than 30 such offices around the country sitting inside of city governments. Advanced Peace pushes the lessons learned to the rest of the community and nation. The Peacemaker Fellowship identifies and enrolls active firearm offenders who have avoided law enforcement's reach. The folks that we enroll don't come to this program thinking that they want to change their lives. No, they are committed to blowing your head off with a firearm. The process of this 18-month program changes that perspective about how to handle conflict.
I heard about Advanced Peace around 2012, and I was fresh home out of doing a stint in prison. Never had a job before, never did anything besides, criminal activities. And according to all the paths that I took with my life, I was directly headed to be another statistic.
We engage them every single day, working to help them develop what we call a life management action plan. We help them think about, what is my housing situation? What's my employment situation? What's my mental health situation? We also help them achieve those goals.
I worked in uniform law enforcement for about 27 years, believing that you could arrest your way out of crime. I actually found out that 95% of the people that we arrest come back to the community. What's different about this program is it's community driven. So instead of the police leading the effort, this is a community driven effort.
Intergenerational mentoring is critical. We identify untapped assets, typically formerly incarcerated individuals, and then we redeploy them back into the communities that they very well understand, where they have license to operate.
They just kept sticking with me. Once you figure out that they're not the police, it makes you more susceptible to deal with them. Felt like you could go and talk to somebody and be honest with them. They bring the consequences back to your eyes and, hey man, just chill out, let's work this out a different way.
The touch point of our fellowship is what we call transformative travel. Understand that most of these individuals have never left the communities that they live in to just be able to have a space where I can breathe and not worry about someone coming to get me. On these excursions, they're visiting universities in these other cities. They're doing community service activities that they cannot do in their city of origin.
The trips and all of that opened my eyes to new things, and it made me realize the world's bigger than Richmond.
What Advanced Peace has done is they prove that the concept works. Arresting and incarcerating people costs about $60,000 a year in California. Every shooting you can prevent, you are literally saving millions of dollars over time.
Right now, I'm living out all my dreams. Once you start to love yourself, your eyes open up and you're able to love other people. You value your life, you value other lives.
We're in 9 cities, and we are in 18 additional cities that are using touch points of our fellowship opportunity. Within 24 months of Advanced Peace's launch, we're seeing 20 to 40% reductions in firearm activity. That's a clear demonstration of our success.
Wow,
Right.
that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So please continue with your presentation, because I think that we all want to hear a little bit more about how this actually comes together. We see the results in the video, but what's the process?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying and recognizing the 2 leaders that spoke before me, because a couple of themes came out that are important themes. Trust is critical to making this go, and collaboration, and I want to also say understanding the power of food. One of our most significant expenditures is food. And food is a great neutralizer, particularly when you're dealing with a population that is hungry. So I just wanted to acknowledge and lift those up. You wanted me to talk about Richmond a little bit. I think that's an important sort of starting point. Because when I got to Richmond, folks, I didn't have a great amount of understanding of gun violence. And as noted, the city of Richmond was the 3rd most dangerous city in the country when I got there. It was the most dangerous city in California based on gunfire activity. So I learned a great deal as a part of the consulting work that I had been doing there, to help the city decide what it would do or begin to do differently that would help it reduce gunfire. And so, I was a part of making a recommendation that they create this new city agency, first of its kind in the country. There are now 40 plus of these agencies inside government that we are supporting around the country. But there were 4 immediate things that I learned, and immediate is a relevant term because I probably learned them within the first 24 months of being in Richmond. The first thing I learned was, it's a small group of people in most cities that are driving gunfire. So when you think of a city like Chicago, you hear about all of the gunfire there, or New Orleans, and the population size of those cities. We're talking about in Chicago maybe 400 people that are actually involved or at the center of gunfire in those cities, driving those numbers up. So I learned in Richmond, albeit on the news every night, you would have thought we were in Beirut somewhere, that 30 individuals, less than 30 individuals, were driving much of the gunfire that made the city the most dangerous city in California. The second thing I learned was that most of these individuals will never go to jail for their suspected acts of gunfire. So they remain on the streets, often emboldened to shoot more and to use a firearm to solve the conflicts that they're negotiating on a daily basis. And when they do go to jail, they go for lesser offenses, which means they're going to be in and out of the system. They're coming back to the community, or they're going to die as a result of gunfire. As you all can imagine, the most likely to shoot is also the hunted. They're the most likely to be victimized by gunfire. The third thing I learned, and this is a critical piece, I believe, and it certainly changed my thinking upon learning it. And that is, 95 to 98% of these particular individuals driving gunfire are not being served, engaged, or contacted by any public or community-based system of care. That was revelationary for me. I was blown away to learn that we had spent a lot of money in the city of Richmond in the public sphere and in the community to reduce gunfire, but rarely did those resources meet or reach the very people involved or at the center of that firearm activity. That to me was a game changer learning. And then finally, as a result of us not engaging the population from a public or community-based system of care, we lack the capacity or understanding of how to engage them in ways that would in fact deliver optimal outcomes for them individually, but also for their families and their communities. And that was sort of the birth, if I may, of the Peacemaker Fellowship. I decided once learning these things that we needed to create the system of care that would in fact, one, neutralize gun violence, but also get these active firearm offenders to a place where they could in fact take advantage or capitalize on the mainstream services, supports, and opportunities. I simply felt that it would be easier to get them to a place of change than it would be to change the public and community-based system of care framework that still exists in most cities impacted by gun violence. So I just wanted to sort of center us there, because after 2014, we experienced, after creating the fellowship, I should say, and launching in June of 2010, by 2014, we'd experienced a 4-decade low of firearm activity in the city of Richmond. And as a result of that, we were getting a lot of attention and a lot of attention from venture capitalist-oriented philanthropy. And that led us to a place where we were asked if we were interested in determining whether or not we could do this, i.e. replicate it, bring it to scale in other cities of different issues, different sizes, et cetera. And, I took that call and that challenge in 2016 and created Advanced Peace. If we could go to the next slide, please. And so really, Advanced Peace is all about reducing firearm activity, cyclical, retaliatory firearm activity. That is what is happening in our communities, in Black and Brown communities around the country. So I want to be clear, this is not a jobs program. This is not a gang prevention or gang intervention program. And I say that because it is important to understand that this is a strict gun violence reduction program, as well as a leadership development opportunity for those active firearm offenders who accept the call to be enrolled in this very prestigious opportunity of fellowship. Most gang members don't shoot, folks. And if they did, we'd be in trouble. And many of our active firearm offenders have jobs. So the conflicts that they're negotiating day in and day out in the neighborhoods are rarely related to money, oftentimes, or finance. It's related to disrespect. It's related to females. It's related to history. Next slide, please. And I guess I should say too, that we're working to really develop and heal individuals who've had very few developmental and healing centered opportunities. Again, this population is very isolated and working very hard to stay and remain in the shadows. This slide talks about the challenge. This gap that we reference here, because I'm going to assume that everyone can read, is that gap of, we've got firearm offenders driving gun violence in cities, and most of the strategies available aren't reaching or meeting those individuals. And so Advanced Peace was created, or the Peacemaker Fellowship was created to, in fact, engage solely active firearm offenders, who've avoided law enforcement reach. And so what that means, folks, is that prior to enrollment of this 18 to 20 month fellowship, our fellows haven't made a decision to change. They are, the criteria is that they've recently shot someone and missed, and they remain a threat to public safety. They've shot someone and injured them, remain a threat to public safety, i.e. they remain on the streets. They've shot someone and killed them, and perhaps multiple people, and they remain a threat to public safety. So the obvious question perhaps might be, why aren't they in jail? That's a great question. And there's probably a gazillion answers around why they aren't in jail. But what I can tell you is that they're not in jail. And even with greater law enforcement attention on them, they remain involved or at the center of gunfire. And what we've learned is we better have something else in the tool chest that has a viable opportunity to help them to 180 the behaviors that give rise to that destructive behavior. And I want to say clearly, on day one of our fellowship, if we're doing our jobs right, and I know how this might sound to some of the audience, but I want to be clear, every one of our fellows should be in jail. It's a crime to do any of those things that makes them meet the criteria for the fellowship in California. It's punishable by law. Am I arguing that jail is going to help or change them? No. But in California and in most states, if you harm someone with a firearm, kill someone with a firearm, you get a timeout. These individuals aren't getting a timeout. And so our thesis is unless and until law enforcement can remove these guys from the streets, we better have other tools that engage them directly. Next slide. Advanced Peace, as has been noted, is an 18 to 24 month fellowship opportunity. We like to say that it is a prestigious opportunity, and you'll understand that momentarily. But the theme around it is just understanding that we have to compete with the adrenaline, the endorphins that come with having armed power, with having the prestige of being a shooter, an active firearm offender in one's community. And so whatever we have coming at them better be legitimate, better be attractive, and certainly should be prestigious enough to compete with what keeps them in the game of shooting per se. It's evidence-based. Next slide. So all of these things are happening: street outreach, mentoring, violence interrupter, intensive case management, life skills training, cognitive behavioral therapy. Again, that theme has come up before today in terms of mental health and mental health support, and subsidized employment. Next slide. And here's the prestigious aspect of it. And this is the heart of the Peacemaker Fellowship today. We are in the lab working on new touch points as we speak, based on learnings over the last decade or so. Each fellow gets what we call a life management action plan. This is developed between the case manager, or what we call neighborhood change agent, a formerly incarcerated firearm offender who's changed their lives and has come back home to be a positive change and difference in the community. Life map goals range from health, mental health, financial health, personal relational health, spirituality, recreation, and on and on and on. So each of our fellows gets a life map that's developed with them. The other thing is daily check-ins and touches. We have learned that engaging this population in any city that we're in, and we're now in 13 cities around the country and 2 cities outside of this country today, that you've got to engage them every day. Intermittent engagement doesn't work. And so it's important that we are doing that. And I want to have you think about these themes as I'm talking about it, because if you think very closely, and for some of you, you won't have to think closely. This is what your children have access to. They have access to goals and the discussion of goals and the impact of achieving goals on their lives, reviewing goals on their lives. Each of our children has had access to positive, healthy developmental relationships, whether it's in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our teams, etc. So social services, we provide access to the best that are available, and we take our fellows, even if they're 35 years old, to these services. Why? Because we want to make sure that no matter how the fellow shows up, he or she is provided with a high standard of care. The other reason is, like many of you, I'm not just letting my children go into any organization without me checking it out first and listening and seeing what's going on in the building, even if it has a phenomenal reputation. Transformative travel, as you heard in the video, we get these guys out of here. It's important to do that, and they can travel throughout their state of origin with other fellows who are part of their clique or crews or gangs. But anytime they travel out of the state or out of the country, and we do that several times a year, they have to travel with someone that they're trying to kill and with someone who is trying to kill them. And let me tell you something, I know there may be questions about that later. It's a pretty transformative experience. The other piece is the elder circle. Again, having access to elders and intergenerational exchanges, we've learned is very key, not for just the fellows, but for the elders themselves, because most of these elders will rarely have access to an active firearm offender who's avoided law enforcement's reach. We provide internship opportunities based on our learning and understanding of who these fellows are, what they're passionate about, what they're interested in. And the touch point that gets the greatest amount of attention, and believe it or not, it's not the most important touch point, even for the fellows, is what we call a life map milestone allowance. Each of our fellows is able to earn up to $1,000 a month based on the goals they achieve through their life map goal experience. We're working very hard to make sure that this doesn't compromise their intrinsic motivation. So the nuance, the mechanics, and even the sequencing of this touch point is very important. And next slide, please. And I think we're getting close. Very quickly, this slide says a lot, but I'd really like for you to pay attention to the circles at the bottom of the slide. This is really the criteria and the crux of what we believe translates into significant reductions in gunfire in the cities that we are in. Each of our fellows, or 96% of the fellows during my tenure between 27 and 2016, or the fellowship's tenure in Richmond, 2010 and 2016, there were 106 fellows. 96% of them are alive today. Today, right? These are the most likely to be shot and killed or shot and injured by gunfire. 96% of them are alive. 88% of them haven't been injured by a firearm since becoming a fellow. And 76% of them, active firearm offenders who've avoided law enforcement's reach, are no longer on the law enforcement's radar for new firearm activity since becoming a fellow. And then you look at the slide, or not the slide, the part of the slide to the left, and you see these reductions. Well, those reductions are direct result and in proportion to the impact that we're having on active firearm offenders through this work. And today, let me tell you this, today, Richmond isn't even ranked in the top 100 most dangerous cities. To date, Richmond has 4 firearm-related homicides, and we are now in September, almost through September, and 11 non-fatal shootings to date, and that includes those 4. I mean, that includes the firearm homicide. So very important to understand how we get there. Finding the right people to facilitate the work, that credible messenger that the doc spoke about earlier, training and developing them, redeploying them back into those neighborhoods, and leveraging their license to operate to connect with this population that often goes unconnected with. Next slide. And this is the final slide. I won't go through it, but in summary, this is what Advanced Peace and the Peacemaker Fellowship is all about. We understand the nature of gun violence. I think if you're going to do this work, you got to understand the nature of it. You got to understand who's driving it. You got to be about saving lives. You got to believe that you can, in fact, do it. You've got to, and I think, excuse my puppy, you've got to understand that the gap, that vision that Pastor talked about. You got to have a vision of what it is you're trying to create, or else you can't create it. You got to understand where it is you're going and what the end game is. Trust comes up again. I think focus has been critical to our success. We're not working with at-risk, high-risk, in-risk people. You can hide in those categories. We're working with active firearm offenders who've avoided the reach of law enforcement, period. I don't think you can reduce gun violence in the near term, achieve long-term sustained results if you're not willing to engage the very people perpetrating the act. We're cost effective. We're spending $40,000 a year per fellow. And I know that may sound expensive, but think about the cost that each of those fellows is to society when they shoot just one person. In Richmond, for every firearm-related homicide that an individual is responsible for, that's a $2 million cost to the city and county. For every firearm-related injury, it's $1 million cost. And I can get that data in terms of the breakdown of those costs to you if anyone is interested. Think about that for a second. So in that case, when you think about it, you go $40,000 is a bargain. We're independent and nimble. It allows us to do a lot of different things that other organizations and public systems may not be able to do. And we work with the University of California at Berkeley, Carmen Bogan, not the Cardinal, but at Berkeley School of Public Health and the Center for Global Healthy Cities as our third-party independent learning and evaluation team. And so we're always evolving and always innovating to make sure that we're keeping up with the evolution of the space and of the individual, him or herself. And that is my slide presentation.
Well, I'm just sitting here smiling because I remember some of those terrifying days when you began that program in Richmond.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest, I just wanted you to stop. I'm like, just stop.
Yeah.
This is too much for the family.
Yeah.
And
And I get it, Carmen. It's a lot. I hate to interrupt. You're right. It was scary for me too. It was certainly scary for my immediate family, particularly as gun violence moved from the communities where it was known to happen out into the more broader public space. You could be anywhere in Richmond at any time and get it, as they would say. And so it was eerie. I had some very eerie days and nights, and yeah, so I get it. I appreciate that. Yet,
you introduced the fellows to your family,
mm-hmm.
to your wife,
yeah,
to your two small children.
Yeah.
You invited them to dinner.
Yeah.
And your Aunt Carmen is saying, what's wrong with that boy?
Yeah.
We're praying, and he's pushing our prayers to the outer limits of our anointing.
Yeah.
With the things he's doing. But now that we look back, there's an old saying in the church that when I look back, I understand. And I think that you're sending a message to everybody who's listening that there are some challenges that we all have now, particularly in Oakland. Let me just say, Oakland is getting some national attention for all the wrong reasons, much like Richmond was getting.
Yeah.
But what did it require? What it required is someone who could see past their nose to look at possible solutions. I have a couple questions for you. There are so many because I know, but I'm not going to take up all the time with my own questions. I'm going to ask my most burning questions.
Carmen, real quick, because
Yes.
you said something that I hope you said, I hope that folks are getting, or that people may be getting on this call. I'm going to tell you what I hope they're getting. Is that I like, really remind us that our Creator loves the shooter too. Like with us, his love for them is overwhelming, never ending, and reckless, right? And he chases them down too. And I think it's important for us as society, particularly as folks of faith, to just get that he loves them too. And his love, like for us, is reckless, overwhelming. He will leave the 99 for one of them too. And that's how we must be, the hands and feet of our Creator.
Well, do I need to say anything else, preacher man? Because that says it all. And it is what we are seeing with all of our speakers is the overwhelming, reckless love of God exhibited through his people. And what a way to celebrate the final session for 2023 of A Model Built on Faith, because that really is our theme. The things we're doing, most of us, we could make more money, but it's really not about making money for us. It's about doing the work of God that we have been assigned to do. Now the challenge is to do it recklessly, as God has done it for us. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. So, just based on what you've said, how important is the faith community in this space? And what advice can you give the faith community? Because many times we look at the faith community and the faith community is exhausted.
Yeah.
And we tend to blame the faith community for not doing enough. But what we really are seeing many times is poor strategization, failure to capitalize on the power of partnerships, failure to capitalize on the power of prayer, being too silent about the power of our God, and exhaustion because we're trying to do too much alone.
Yeah.
In your experience, what must the faith community do to maximize and best leverage its power and resources, not just in gun violence, because we're seeing gun violence, and in Oakland, might I say, we're seeing gun violence, we're seeing theft, we're seeing just violence. Someone that will walk up to you if they see that you don't walk securely, and they'll push you down.
Yeah.
How does the faith community leverage who they are and what they're bringing to the table?
Yeah, well, first, let me say yes. To answer your question, yes, the faith community is a must when it comes to this issue and certainly other social issues impacting the health and insanity of the neighborhoods where we live. I mean, I will tell you, and I think most folks on the call will appreciate this in their experience, that we have several organizations of faith in every one of the neighborhoods where at least gun violence is happening. And so there's already a presence and an abundance of resources, whether it be financial or technical, but certainly an abundance of human resources. And so you've answered the question. We've got to be organized. We've got to collaborate and partner, because we don't have to do it alone. But I also would say, you know, we've got to believe that we're important. We've got to understand and be relevant. You know, I often say, you know, if you talk to an active firearm offender, they're going to tell you, you know, the church isn't even relevant to them. And so we've got to be more relevant to the least of these, if I may say. We've got to be welcoming, we've got to be open, and we've got to see. I think the pastor talked about this earlier. We've got to be able to see these individuals and see the beauty of these individuals. And so we've got to make sure that we in our congregations, where we exist in these communities already, are present, visible, approachable, engaging, and not be afraid. Most of these individuals, let me tell you, are looking for us to engage them and be there for them. So, you know, that's what I would say. I would say, you know, we've got to recognize our relevance. We've got to use and be relevant to the population. This is a mission field, if I could. You know, we do missions everywhere. You know, where I go to worship, we do missions all over the world. Rarely do we do missions in our own backyard.
Yeah.
Right outside of the walls of our churches where we live. And we got to exert the resources that we might exert to missions around the world, to our own backyard. So we have to see people worthy of our time, our attention, our human resource, and our financial resource. And so I think that's a major piece that we have to be able to overcome. It's difficult to see this population as worthy of the prestigious opportunity that we provide them. I get it all the time. And we can argue whether or not that is true or false. But is it not worthy of the communities where they live when we make these kinds of investments in them and our communities become healthier and safer
Thank you.
as a result of that?
I appreciate that answer. Thank you so much. I just need my heart is pounding because I know you're still out there doing those things, and that aunties worry and pray. But I want to open the floor to our other speakers and our other moderator. I'd like to bring the panel together. Shai, I don't know how you do that technically, but I would like Dr. Butler, Pastor Baines. Please unmute yourself and stay with us, Devon, and Dr. Miles Chambers. I don't know if Pastor Baines has already left. Oh, there he is.
I just moved to a different room.
Okay, excellent. Nice and bright where you are. I'm going to ask you the same question. Well, first of all, this is a difficult thing for our faith community because our faith community is experiencing a bit of challenge on their own. You know, where'd everybody go? And so any of you can answer this question, and please unmute yourselves, and any of you answer the question. And if we have any, I'm looking at the chat to see if anyone wants to put questions in the chat. But my question to all of you is, and Devon has already answered it, let me talk to Dr. Butler. What is the role of the faith community in addressing some of these things that we've talked about? What about partnerships? What kind of actions should the faith community, you know, not everybody has the kind of program that you have. Is it your vision? Is it that you hear the call of God strongly to take your vision to these high levels? I mean, what is it that makes your program different than, say, for a faith-based organization that's struggling with small impacts? What would you say?
It's the power of collaboration for us. I think it's our ability to bring people together, to allow for the mobilization of the resources that we provide. I mean, it's really that simple. If we can take away our isolation, we live obviously in a world where we're, faced with individualism every day. But if we can come together towards a common goal, and for us as a coalition, it was just to feed people. Hunger has no denomination or religious affiliation. So if we had a common goal of just providing services to the people that need it and come together in doing that and leveraging the network that we have to do other things in terms of vaccination work, we do work in education, substance abuse. It's a simple thing for us. And that's what we've prided ourselves on, is no matter what, we work together.
So you're saying that there may be a skill set that one congregation may not have, but they can reach across the aisle, as it were, to another congregation that has that skill set. I want to move to Dr. Chambers, only because we're running out of time, and also Pastor Baines, and just ask the question: how do we take the vision we have? We talk about a greater impact, but how do we have a greater vision? How do we elevate our vision, Pastor Baines, in order to have a greater impact? Because sometimes the problem is we are looking through the glass darkly, and the light never comes on to do the kind of work that you're doing. And you're on a roll now. You're seeing a need and you're meeting a need. How do we infuse that into our faith and nonprofit community?
I don't know if my sister wanted to go first, or you'd asking me directly first.
Either way.
Oh. All right. Well, I would say this. I have a strong belief system that I'm kind of going to rip off of what Dr. Butler said, that none of us is as strong as all of us. And forgive us, because I was trying to find another room, so forgive me.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine.
But none of us is as strong as all of us. We have to have the realization that we all cannot do everything, but that we all can do something. And we should find what that pain point or passion point that we have, and look to see, okay, God, what do you want me to do with this now that I've discovered this? And then ask for direction of who you can partner with. We have to also learn that sometimes we want to do everything, and that's not good, because we dilute our effectiveness. And so being able to be very clear, concise, and compelling with your messaging is extremely important to garner more of a synergistic approach as we address these systemic issues that we face in our communities. So have a vision, but do what you do best, and then partner for the rest. And
finally, with Dr. Chambers, you are the most, I don't know, you are so positive. And you are one of the most positive people that I've ever met in my life. And I'm not going to cry.
Don't cry.
But you've been through so much. And we start out, well, I'm trying to encourage her. And at the end of the conversation, she's encouraged me, and she's the one going through it. I'm the one crying, and she's the one smiling and saying, it's going to be okay, Carmen. So I want to ask you the $1 million question.
What's that?
What can you say to the faith community that will encourage them at this time, not only in the work that they do, but how important they are?
Well, first of all, the faith community, no matter what your spiritual pathway is, we are the first responders to any crisis that happens, not just in this country, but in the world. We're there first. This country was established based on the principles of our spiritual pathways. And so we cannot forget that, no matter what's happening. The other thing is that it is our role and responsibility to be there for community. The trust was all throughout the language today, as well as education, as well as self-care, mental health care. So we have to take care of ourselves. The one thing that the church or the faith-based organizations need to do is we need to build power. We need to join some community organizing networks, and we need to build power. You know why? Because we need to change policy. We're just at the beginning of what's going to be the breakdown of what we call our infrastructure and the safety net. It is crumbling, and unless we come together, as Pastor Baines, Dr. Butler said, and Devone said, we have to work together. We are no good alone. We have to partner so we can do our creative work that we're doing in our congregations and in our neighborhoods. But it needs to link up to a community organizing network that has power, or a power building network, because we have to change policy. Policy is being changed. The dollars are not coming into our community to change them. And the folks that are speaking the loudest and showing up, I want to challenge everybody. You need to show up once a month at your city council meeting. Get to know your city council person. Get to know your county supervisor. Get to know your state representative. That's where the money is, and your federal representatives. Send them bills. We're working on SB4 for faith-based organizations to be able to not have to go through those loopholes to build affordable housing. We have to change policy. So you know how we did the civil rights movement? We organized. We built power. That still works. People, power, numbers still work. Send the social medias to your folks, your representatives. You voted them in. We pay their salary. They don't pay our salary. It is their role and responsibility to do what is right for the community and to resource the community for what we need. But if they don't hear from us, they're going to send it to whoever they want. So
that's powerful. That is powerful. Thank you. I want to thank all of our speakers, everyone who attended. I don't see anything in the chat, and I don't know if the chat is just not functioning, but let's see. But there's one thing that Pastor Bain said that I would also add, and that is be other-centered. Be other-centered. And I really think that that's what this is all about. And then Devone said something too, and that is that we're supposed to look at everybody through the eyes of compassion. And if we just dealt with people who deserved our help, we wouldn't deal with anybody. And as a matter of fact, we wouldn't even be here because we haven't deserved it all the time. And I can only speak for myself. But because we don't deserve it, when we get it, it's even more special. And so, let's see, someone said here, can you make a list of resources shared in the chat available to us? Yes, to the extent that we have them, we definitely will. We're going to continue to send the advanced peace information and information on all of the programs. I'm going to be wanting to see, let's see. So let's see, there's so many other things, and we have so many other questions, and we're running out of time. As a matter of fact, we're out of time. One of the things that we want to do, I want to read something to you. And it's from this book. And it is the first thing you see in this book, because that's all I've read of it. Okay, just the first page. But this is a message to my brothers and sisters who are nonprofit leaders and who are faith-based leaders. And it is this: when we are other-centered, there's something that's going to happen. We're going to grow. And when we grow, we're going to go from glory to glory. And it's going to cost us something. There are conversations that need to be had. But this is going to be a new life, because you're going to see new power, new perspective, new perception, higher levels of compassion, a different palette, and more discernment. So T.D. Jakes is not speaking of that, but it made me think of this. And this is what he said. Your new life is going to cost you, faith leaders, your old one. We're moving in a time that Michelle talked about, where your new life is going to cost you your old one. It's going to cost you your comfort zone and your sense of direction. God will tell you to do something, and your response is going to be, are you talking to me? You must be thinking about somebody else. It's going to cost you some relationships and some friends. It's going to cost you being liked and being understood, but it doesn't matter. The people who are meant for you are going to meet you on the other side. You're going to build a new comfort zone around things that actually move you forward, Dr. Butler. I'm speaking to him because he's the young one on this panel. And instead of being liked, you're going to be loved. Instead of being understood, you're going to be seen. And Black women out there, you're also going to be heard. All you're going to lose is what was built for a person you no longer are. Shai is going to be upset with me because we don't have time to fill out the evaluation form. But what we are going to do is we're going to thank everybody. We're going to thank everybody who attended. And I want to give you a big hand. I know that you all are praying for me. I'm praying for you. Thank you all, everybody who's out there who has attended the 2023 series of A Model Built on Faith. Get out there, get your boots on the ground, be in the room where you're supposed to be, have the conversations you need to have. And for all of you nonprofits who work in this space, God bless you. And for all of the nonprofits, all the faith organizations, God bless you. And we honor you and thank you so much for joining us for the 2023 series of this wonderful program run by Dr. Michelle Miles Chambers, A Model Built on Faith. Bye, everybody.
Bye.